In 1966, 3 years before Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, those were fairly strong words about an improbable science fiction television program. Of course, we all know now that Star Trek soared far beyond any other network series of its time. Ironically, Star Trek drew average ratings as judged by standards of our time, but the original NBC network run attracted many loyal viewers. When the show was canceled, this core audience propelled Star Trek to the phenomenal success and off-network syndication. Since the late 1970s, 6 feature films have added to the huge number of Star Trek fans worldwide. In 1987, the launch of Star Trek: The Next Generation opened the universe to a whole new crew of Star Trek lovers and proved that an inventive dramatic show could excel in first-run syndication. The next frontier for this world-class series will be Star Trek: Deep Space Nine, to be syndicated by Paramount this January. 25 years ago, the Star Trek Enterprise set out to conquer the final frontier. Now Star Trek is firmly entrenched in the American culture, with a special exhibit at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. All of us have the privilege to watch Star Trek expand it on our universe and open our minds.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission: to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilizations, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
There was a great deal of interplay between the various writers who came in, producers who were here, and the executive producer, who was Gene Roddenberry. It was an amalgam of people who contributed to the making of Star Trek, and one idea bounced off another.
Balance powerful. And if the Klingons give their side even more, then we arm our side with exactly that much more. A balance of power. The trickiest, most difficult, dirtiest game of them all, but the only one that preserves both sides.
If you look at Star Trek, what you're seeing a group of people who are very professional in what they do, and they are working in this bizarre world. And at the same time, in this bizarre world, you're finding that all these people still have problems that are going on day to day, just as we're experiencing now.
The Enterprise and their why you're not afraid to die, Spock. You're more afraid of living. Each day you stay alive is just one more day you might slip and let your human half peek out.
I was very excited about the atmosphere that we were working in, because writers were given a chance to express their feelings, their ideas, their personal experiences on a variety of subjects that we theatrically could present.
It is obvious to the most simple-minded that Lokai is of an inferior breed.
The obvious visual evidence, Commissioner, is that he is of the same breed as yourself.
Look at me. You're black on one side and white on the other. I am black on the right side. I fail to see the significant difference. Lokai is white on the right side. All of his people are white on the right side.
Chairman, Brandon Tartikoff. Brandon?
Well, on behalf of everybody at Paramount, thank you. I'd just like to take a second and explain my connection here today, beyond the obvious one of being chairman now at Paramount. A few weeks ago, the executive board of the NAB met, and being the thorough kind of organization that they are, they were looking for someone to introduce to you today the big three from the Star Trek series. They wanted to get somebody who had launched their career at NBC and then had gone to Paramount to ultimately realize their big dreams on the big screen. Eddie Murphy was busy, so I got the gig. Anyway, it's on momentous days like this that I think about what might have been, about what would have happened if NBC, after rejecting the first Star Trek pilot, didn't let Gene Roddenberry try a second. Don't look at me on this one. It was 1965, I was a junior in high school. Or, after NBC canceled the series at the end of its third season, you, the broadcasters of America and the world, and your viewers, didn't keep the show alive for over 20 years in reruns. So we have lived to see this day. And now, there have been 6 successful Star Trek features, not 1 but 2 spin-offs launched, and now enshrinement in the Broadcasting Hall of Fame. So what's the secret? A pertinent question to be asked out loud in this august gathering of people always on the lookout for the next hit. Star Trek's secret, if it indeed is a secret, is really rather simple. Like with a lot of hits, past, present, and future, Star Trek has the 3 vital ingredients to connect and reconnect with a mass audience. First, vision. The vision of Gene Roddenberry, who endowed the show with an optimistic view of the future, that life in the 23rd and 24th century can be better, that problems can be dealt with, even though, even in the 23rd and 24th century, they had not been able to reach a solution on the retransmission issue. Second, great storytelling. Tales about humanity, not hardware. That's why this show has stood the test of time. And lastly, great characters that have become indelibly etched in our national consciousness. Great because they were brought alive by great actors who have remained together for over 25 years, longer than all but 1% of Hollywood marriages. It is now my pleasure to introduce them to you now. First, the man who went from frequently playing heavies in television dramas to being perhaps the best-known doctor in the universe today, Dr. Bones McCoy himself, DeForest Kelly. Come on out. Next, the actor whose skill managed to turn an alien with pointy ears and a greenish complexion into a sex symbol, the ever-logical Mr. Spock, Mr. Leonard Nimoy. And finally, the actor who proved that passionate romance can be accomplished even while fending off attacks by the Klingons, Captain James Tiberius Kirk of the Starship Enterprise, William Shatner. all of us at Paramount thank you for this honor, and we congratulate DeForest Kelley, Leonard Nimoy, and William Shatner on this great honor, and welcome them now to address you on the stage here.
Leonard, if somebody comes to grab this and smash it, pinch him. I was an actor on radio at the age of 6 in Montreal, CBC Montreal. Later on, put myself through college at radio acting. Went to Toronto, was in on the first of television in Toronto and radio there. The last of the golden age in New York, and the beginning of television in Hollywood. A long road to Star Trek, and now the Hall of Fame. There's an air of finality about being in the Hall of Fame, but don't you believe it? This is a vision of the future. On behalf of everybody connected with Star Trek, thank you very much.
I consider myself a very lucky man today because Mr. Sykes made the speech that I was going to make. Through the years, the three of us and all of us connected with Star Trek have repeatedly been asked, did you have any idea when you were doing the show that there would be a 25-year history, that you would be receiving all these honors, Grauman's Chinese Theater, the Smithsonian Institute, the NAB? And the answer is, of course, I knew. The other two didn't. But I did know, and I had help. Because I want to quote to you, I had help. If you had read the review that appeared in Daily Variety the week of our first airing, you would have known too, because this is what it said. Star Trek with William Shatner, Leonard Nimoy, and DeForest Kelley. And then it goes on to say, Star Trek obviously solicits all-out suspension of disbelief, but it won't work. Even within its sci-fi frame of reference, it was an incredible and dreary mess of confusion and complexities at the kickoff. The interplanetary spaceship trudged on for a long hour, with hardly any relief from violence, killings, hypnotic stuff, and a distasteful, ugly monster. By a generous stretch of the imagination, it could lure a small coterie of the small fry, though not happily time-slotted in that direction, is best suited to the Saturday morning kid vid block. This is the review of our first episode in 1966. The performers are in there pitching, says William Shatner, one of a star-billed pair, has a good track record in TV and legit, but as the skipper of the Enterprise spaceship appears wooden. I knew you'd appreciate that, though. And uncertain about his function. Same goes for Leonard Nimoy. Co-starred as Mr. Spock, so-called chief science officer, whose bizarre hairdo, etc., is a dilly. And DeForest Kelley as chief medico is the same. This is the final line. The biggest guessing game is figuring how this lowercase Fantasia broke into the schedule. Anyway, you get the idea. That's what they were saying about us in 1966. So it was clear to me that we would be here today receiving this great honor.
Thank you. There's something very weird about this. We have a new godfather at Paramount now, Mr. Tartikoff. We lost Mancuso, so Tartikoff is here to take over our family. Since he's been there, we have been celebrated in some very strange ways. I received a star on Hollywood Boulevard. Then we were immortalized in cement on December the 5th at Mann's Chinese Theater. Next time I saw Mr. Tartikoff was in Washington, D.C., where we were installed in the National Space Museum, where they have a bunch of artifacts for old museum pieces. I shudder to think where he's taking us next. I want to express my deep and heartfelt feelings for bestowing this honor upon us today. We are indeed grateful. But I cannot leave here without quoting a poem, a little short poem that I read, in lieu of some of those smart-ass remarks that Don Rickles made. I wrote a poem some time ago, and in the body of it, there were a few lines about the critics. You see, what we've done in the motion pictures have been, we've made a few bucks for Paramount. They haven't done badly. But it seems to be it's the critics of someone who can't stand the fact that we're growing older. So I wrote a little thing that said they have critiqued our bellies, our wrinkles, our hair. We just keep going. We don't care. It seems to me that they've never been told that all of us are growing old. Thank you very much.